Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and we've had so many new things hitting the shelves recently that this week you're getting a bonus episode of New Knives of the Week, where we take a look at some of the coolest things that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, to kick things off this week, don't have any new exclusives to show at the beginning of this video, but how about some orange stuff instead? We've got orange in our logo, don't we? We're the Knife Center after all. Some new colors of the ESEE designed Chirp are now here. Previously, this was available in micarta or carbon fiber handles, but now there are some G10 options. And of course, G10 brings the opportunity for more colors. I'm holding the orange one here. There's also a yellow, a blue, and a white G10 currently available on this knife. And it's actually kind of fitting. If you saw our Knife AQ episode from this past weekend, we talked about knives that maybe they weren't the best looking in the world, but they had great personality. This is a perfect knife for that because it's essentially very simple shapes. You've just got an elliptical handle, kind of an elliptical drop point blade shape as well. Simple, full flat grind, simple protruding tab for the liner lock, and a pocket clip. It is kind of a boiled down essence of pocket knife in a way. The reason that I think this knife is so special and why it has sold so well since it was initially introduced is the price. With a D2 blade, G10 or micarta, 20 bucks. Insane value on offer right here. 2.7 inches roughly of blade length. You've got a full flat grind and blade stock that's not too thick. It's just a great everyday carry slicing blade. Old school penknife vibes, but of course you've got a lock and a pocket clip for convenience as well. Now the upside of that elliptical handle is neutrality. This is like the Switzerland of knife handles because it is neutral no matter what situation you put it in. Any kind of grip, reverse grips, fine carving stuff, it all works. Pinch grip, even if you've got bigger hands that are larger than this handle is itself, it's not going to be a problem because what is left just works so well. It's not proscriptive to any kind of grip you can think of. It's just very, very good. The only way they might be able to improve this, I would say, is if they had a 4-position pocket clip. They've got right side holes for tip up or tip down. Granted, the lock is right-hand biased, but because the tab is so prominent, it's pretty easy to close left-handed as well. So 4-position clip might be the only possible improvement, I think, while maintaining just this excellent utilitarian vibes. And as I said, again, can't stress it enough, insane value right here. All right, next up we have the Real Steel Huginn, also in orange G10, but other colors are of course available. This knife comes in at about $95, and it is these days one of the most affordable crossbar locking knives out there. There are stuff like the Gerber Sumo, the SOG Terminus X.E.R., SOG Tac X.E.R. is maybe a little bit less than this still, unless they've, I haven't looked at the prices on that in a while though. But this fits in really nicely for affordable options with a crossbar lock. 3.6 inch blade VG10, kind of in a way, even though there's definitely more going on with this Real Steel, it has a lot in common with this ESEE Churp that we just looked at. Blade profile or blade shapes, actually very similar. You've got more of a straight spine before the drop rather than an elliptical shape, but it's the same kind of classic drop point shape that is throughout history as extremely versatile and commonplace. Works great. VG10 steel, if I didn't mention that already, high flat grind, and this is a knife you've got a bunch of opening options with as well. Not only do you have the crossbar lock, which is tuned great, by the way, you've got your centrifugal flick, super easy. You've also got the thumb studs, if you want to go that way. And if you are really fancy, you can get into that fuller as well. Dual fullers here. See, I'm not super fancy, but with a little practice, I can get in there. But as you can see, my middle finger there is quite large, so it's hard for me to reach that tiny bit of fuller there, but your mileage will, of course, vary. The other nice thing is the pocket clip here. It's a little bit slim in terms of its kind of thickness capacity for the pants you're wearing, but it is a tail-mounted deep carry clip, which is completely reversible. I love seeing that more and more. It's great, man. Works well, priced well, enough of a handle length and girth there for solid grip. Yeah, really nicely done, and you folks know I'm always happy to see another crossbar lock. Whether you're EDCing this, whether it's a kind of camp companion, I like a little bit of a finger guard, but there's not so much here that it interferes with some real finer grips if you wanted to use it for that sort of thing. Well done. Next up, we've got a new version of the Stella. Comes in about $79 from Real Steel. 3-inch VG10 bladed slip joint in this case, now available in black and white coloration. Black blade, VG10 steel. Did I mention the steel again?
Probably.
I'm saying steel a lot. VG10, good stuff. Black back spring, black pocket clip, and then white G10 for the handles. You've got their signature stop along the travel there, kind of hits along 1/3 of the way closed before you push it the rest of the way. And as you can hear, action is very nice. The pull is still nice and easy though, despite a good amount of backspring pressure there, a decent amount of backspring pressure there for your daily use. The other thing I like about this, which we've seen on their Luna slip joint as well, is you have a little section of jimping here right on the ricasso of the blade, right at the end of the handle that you're actually holding onto. What's nice about that is, I kind of talked about this with the Huginn there, you can get right up behind the edge, do some real fine grips. It's not protecting you from sliding forward, but it is there to let you know you're right on the edge. Even without looking at it, you can walk right up and you know where you need to stop your finger so you're not sliding it forward and nicking yourself in the process. Always like to see stuff like that. But it's cool, it's a modern slip joint. You can carry it easily thanks to that pocket clip. The blade stock is appropriately thin with that full flat grind there. Great little slicer. Well, we'll call that a modified Wharncliffe here. There's pretty significant amount of belly on it, but it's probably closest to what we're looking at right there. Now, speaking of their Luna, I mentioned the Luna slip joint earlier. Here we have the Luna Boost, which is a frame locking version of the Luna. It still has that jimping there right at the front on the underside of the handle, or underside of the tang where you're gripping with your index finger, like I mentioned before. But this is a fully locking knife. About $125 for this. We got 2 3/4 inch blade, N690 steel, titanium handles, super classy, and a movable thumb stud right there. You can see there's a set screw at the top, and you can slide this fore or aft, no problem, which is good because you can really tailor it to your hand and how you like to open it, which is especially good for me, I think, in this case, because for me, the thumb stud is too close to the pivot. Like, it gets a little bit awkward for my hand size. Your mileage, again, may vary, but that's gonna be super easy to adjust if you need to. Full flat grind on nice thin blade stock again. Open backed construction, easy to keep clean. Just super solid, classy everyday carry. It could flex into a gentleman's knife roll, but would not look out of place at all just as your bog standard daily carry piece. All right, next up we have another new frame locking Real Steel. This is the G frame, based of course on their popular G series. We've had the G Slip, as well as the G5 Metamorph, which is similar in profile to this. This is an Ostap Hell design, and I really like this black and gold titanium version. It rings in at about $117, but you can get a bead blasted titanium handle with a satin blade. I believe it's a satin blade, yes, for like $113. So priced very similarly, but check out how cool that black and gold is overall. Very nice. Titanium frame lock, like I mentioned. The gold hardware looks great. I really like even that little bit right there on the lock bar for that lock bar interface on the inside. A little pop of gold, dig that. Great blade shape for daily use as well. You got long, 3.4 inches. You got that long executive style blade, full flat grind, nice thin blade steel. Again, they're doing a great job on these Real Steels in that regard. It's just gonna be a wicked daily cutter. We've got ball bearings in this pivot with that flipper. That's gonna be pretty much your only opening option. As you can see, the blade really nestles into the handle there. There's nothing else to really grab onto. Let's see, even if I tried Oh yeah, I can't get into just into the fuller there at the front, but this is a flipper. You're not going to want to get into that, I think, each time. Wire pocket clip, pretty deep carry and reversible as well. Very, very nice profile. Now the next knife has a very different aesthetic, even though we've got about the same kind of blade length. The Entity from Kansept. Much broader blade, but we're still dealing with like 3.5 inches. There's two versions of this. Actually, no, there's several versions of this. But there are two blade shapes. We have this clip point as well as this kind of hybrid drop point shape right here. Clip point blade, you've got a full flat grind. The drop point, you've got like a saber height flat grind instead with a more deeper swedge. Sorry, English teachers. But a deeper swedge. You still have a hint of a swedge on the clip point version, and you can get it in this Damascus steel or the S35 VN that you see on this drop point. And let me just check. I'm not sure if it's Damas steel or not. It might not be. I don't think it is at this price point, because even this Damascus bladed version with stonewashed titanium handles, black stonewashed in this case, is about 183 bucks. I think if that were Damas steel, it would probably be a little bit more expensive. Drilled hole pattern there in the front for a little bit of aesthetic differentiation. Not so much lightening in this case, but you do get a hint of grip, hint of traction under your fingertips from that, which is kind of cool. Works well actually in that kind of pinched grip with your index finger forward on the blade, thumb resting on those drilled holes. It's pretty nice actually. Dig that broad blade with that full flat grind. Really efficient slicer, at least through straight cuts. Might be a little harder to kind of curve around a cut due to the height of the blade though, but very, very cool. Really digging that clip point. The drop point is also very cool. Here you can see a different titanium color option, more of a standard, or what you would think of as a standard titanium handle. Blue pivot ring, deep carry pocket clip, right side only in both of these cases, and a satin finish on the S35. Very cool blade shape here too. Ball bearing pivots, flipper, which works great. Kansept is doing a very good job. And if neither of these two are your bag, there are several versions like I mentioned. You can get them with black blades. You can get them each, well, they're not a ton, 6 different options anyway. But you can also get a blacked out version. So essentially any combination of that and these two, you can get right now. Next from Kansept, we have the Kratos. Another one of their premium designs, and another Ostap Hell design. Actually, maybe I should have put that next to the real steel we looked at there at the end, but oh well.
Too late now.
Too late now. Two versions of this. You've got this one right here with natural micarta inlays, front and back, with a black stonewashed titanium frame, and an S35 VN blade, almost 3.8 inches, and this one is 260. There is a fancier version, and this one actually, maybe I should have grabbed this one to show you folks, because it's probably an even better value. Still has S35, but with a satin finish, standard titanium frame, but Damascus inlays front and back. And the price, 346 bucks. So it's more pricey than this, yes, but for 2 full Damascus inlays like that, not a lot comes in that inexpensive, I should say. Like I said, pretty good value there, and you get a nice pop of that the blues and purples from that coming through too. Either one is still a pretty cool knife. Frame lock, it's got a little bit of prevention from over travel because of that micarta inlay right there. Milled pocket clip on the back. Flipper with ball bearings. Interesting hybrid blade shape here. Technically, we might want to call that a tanto because you do have 2 different angles of flat grind, essentially, and a definitive point where the 2 different edges converge, but it is way back on the handle. This is not, it's not going to behave like a typical Western tanto would in use. Actually, it might behave a little more like an Eastern tanto in use. But it's kind of a drop point, too. It's a drop toe. Wait, we coined that last week, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
The drop toe blade. It's another type of drop toe blade, perhaps.
I mean, if it's longer than a tanto would be, then it's a tanto.
Or would it be a tan 3 in that case?
Tan 4?
You know, if we're using the laws of inflationary language, of course. But anyway, I don't know where we were going with that, but it is a cool knife. And again, Kansept is new to the scene, but they are doing stuff extremely well. I think right up there with the Kaiser stuff, for sure. All right, 2 more Kansepts right here. We have the Bulldozer with a kind of modified sheep's foot blade, 134 for this knife. S35 VN blade, 3.5 inches, broad, full flat grind, not too thick, very solid, powerful cutter right here. And that's backed up with these twill carbon fiber handles, ball bearings, and a liner lock. Front flipper. And these are the kind of front flippers that stymie me pretty much. I can slow roll this thing very easily, but I've not been able to reliably...
The camera adds 10 experience points.
I swear to you, I was not getting that very well before the camera started rolling. Well, even I apparently don't have too much problem with this particular front flipper, so you folks might have not too much of a problem with it either.
Your front flipping may vary.
Your front flipping mileage may vary, of course. Deep carry pocket clip. What more is there to say? There are other versions of this that have been out for a while. This is just one of the newest versions. I think they've been out for a while. I seem to remember them being out for a little bit anyway. Hey, there's Timascus versions of this one too for like $300. That one has been out for a little while. But it's a really cool daily utility. I mean, it's a bigger, broader blade. So it is kind of a more working style blade. So you've got it with a fancier handle. Something a little bit different. As I wipe my fingerprints off of it. Yeah, just pretty neat option if you're looking for that kind of blade. Speaking of neat options, this next knife is called the KTC3. Too many letters perhaps. It is essentially a folding karambit without the ring. Why don't I just call it a folding hawkbill blade? I don't know, because there's something about this particular blade shape that says karambit to me, even though it can't be a karambit without the ring, so.
It's a crambill.
It's a... No.
We're out of control here.
It's a reverse trailing point.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. But $89 for this knife, 3-inch 154 cm blade, micarta handles. This one is in natural. There are some other colors available as you would expect. And where you might want to use this for, well, obviously there are kind of tactical applications to this talon-shaped blade, but there are utilitarian reasons you might want this as well. Because that recurve, it tends to gather up whatever you're cutting into itself. It kind of pushes itself, or pushes the material into more edge. Works really well on fibrous stuff like rope, even works really well on cardboard, especially when you're pushing through longer cuts. Very unlikely you're gonna slip out of the cut with this downturned blade. Speaking of that blade, some interesting stuff going on here. We've got 2 fullers and 2 different flat grinds, the compound flat grind. Slicier and thinner here out near the tip and more robust here at the heel. Slight degrees of difference here. There's not a markedly more robust angle here at the back. Just a little bit more robust than the little bit thinner tip. I think it's mostly in this case just for a kind of a visual flair. And that this knife really does do the visuals quite nicely. Now, ball bearings in this pivot with that flipper flips really well, I should say, but also those fullers give you more opening options. You can very easily thumb open that. You can very also easily do the reverse flick, no problem. There you go. All right, next we have a small pocket fixed blade. Also karambit-esque, but some folks, even though this has the finger ring, it's not a recurved or a hawkbill style blade. So some folks would take exception to calling this a what's the word?
Trailing bit.
Did I forget the word that quick? I just said it a moment ago. Karambit. I don't know what it is. It's either Monday or Friday here, and either way, the mind's not firing on all cylinders, I think.
This is going to be a fun edit.
No matter. I'm very sorry, Thomas. I'm very sorry, audience. But check out this Bastinelli Dopamine. It is a pocket fixed blade because it is set up with a Kydex sheath and a pocket clip. You've got a little bit of that J-hook styling there at the back to keep it not only from sliding out of your pocket, this is also going to work well inside the waistband. So that'll grab the other side of your hem and it's going to work well there also. Works well, even though you've got a little bit of the hole taken up by the Kydex in this case, you can still get your index finger in there and draw the knife. And even though this is a trailing point, the edge is still on the front side, so to speak. It's not the spine that has been ground sharp. So you've got this little fast, pokey design, essentially. If you're trained up in how to use this sort of thing, I'm sure it's going to be very effective. Or you can just use it as a little kind of very cool, attitude-full box opener. That's what I would wind up using it for, because I am not tactically trained. But it feels really good. It's built really well. Usually these are made by Fox Knives in Italy, and that is still the case. Nice G10 handles, scales here. They're slim, rounded over. They feel, it's like a little twig, but in a really good way. It just nestles really nicely. The nimbleness of this in the hand is quite hard to ignore. And again, if you know what you're doing in a kind of martial capacity, that's definitely going to come in handy. $200 for this, M390 steel, 2.5 inches long. It's a bit of an upgrade. A lot of times some of these Bastinellis come with N690. A lot of the Fox stuff does, in fact. Cool to see that upgraded blade material there. Black stonewash, full flat grind, crazy sharp as well. All right, speaking of kind of powerful blade shapes, that was 2 knives ago technically, the Spyderco Endela Wharncliffe K390 is now in stock. $138 for this super steel, and it is a real super steel in this case, even though that term kind of gets thrown around a lot. Not a stainless, but absolute tons of edge retention. Very, very good at holding an edge a good long time. I've mentioned this video before, but we pitted a K390 Delica against a bunch of cardboard in our Cardboard Slayers video, and it never seemed to want to quit. And even after that, I've used it considerably. I've cut a lot more cardboard with it, and I've only, I think, stropped it once, but it does hang on to that edge an incredibly long time. I really dig this steel. And if you're doing something that requires a lot of work where you need that abrasion resistance, such as cardboard, the Wharncliffe blade is arguably even better than the standard blade on this knife for those materials. Similar to what we talked about on that Hawkbill blade before. This straight edge is not going to kind of gather things into itself, but it is not as likely as a drop point to slide out of a long cardboard cut, or any other kind of long cut for that matter. And then of course you've got that very acute tip, wicked for piercing, of course. And the rest of it is classic lightweight Endela. You've got the dual-sided opening hole, the mid-mounted lockback with the buoy dent, the 4-position pocket clip. This is great for lefties or righties, and great if you need a lot of edge retention on a budget. Because again, $138, the bulk of your budget is going to the actual bit that cuts in this case. It's not going to upgraded handles. It's not going to a fancy proprietary locking mechanism or something they might have to pay royalties on. It is all right there in the blade. It's like when you buy they say about the Corvette, you buy the engine, the car comes for free.
Those were Ferraris.
Is it Ferraris?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Same thing.
Not the best metaphor.
I just made the internet mad by calling them the same thing. But that's kind of what you're getting there. You're paying for an engine and getting the rest of the car thrown in for free. That's quite an engine you're paying for in this case. All right, shall we show some fixed blades?
There's no stopping you.
Probably not. The first is the Condor Balam. Comes in about $143 right now. It's a 9-inch carbon steel blade, 1075 in this case. Micarta handles with really cool, almost kukri-esque inspired handle shape going on. I really like that. At first glance, you may think, oh, this is something like a Becker BK9 competitor. In fact, that was my first instinct as well upon seeing it in photos. But in person, you can see we've got a much thinner blade here than something like the BK9. This is, let's see, do we have a spec listed? 0.12, so that's about 1/8 of an inch. I gotta say, it looks skinnier than that in person, I will admit. What do you think? We don't have a scale meter in the camera over there. As a result, you do not get the same type of heavy chop that you can get with the 3/16 9-inch blade of the Becker, but you do get a more nimble knife. It's a little bit more machete-esque. It's still gonna be good and tough. The 1075 there is gonna work pretty well. You're gonna slice a little more efficiency. You're gonna not have to be carrying as much weight when you go around. You've got a very comfortable handle and you can choke back on it for a little more chopping leverage. But it's just a nimble, all-around bush knife, I think. It's gonna work well at the close-up stuff. The balance point there, yeah, right in front of those scales. That's nice. So that you're not fighting the weight of that knife. You know, you're bringing basically a stick in there if you're doing a little carving, right on the fulcrum point, right on the balance point. So that's gonna be very easy. I'm impressed by that, actually. So it depends on what you want. If you want a little more reach but still want more fine balance for that small stuff, this might even be a better option than the BK9. If you need more choppy chops, go with the Becker in this case. Now, I think this is a Julio Diaz design. We don't have it listed on the website as such. We'll make sure to send that over to the product team to check. But I say that because it has the sheath that all the other Julio, or a lot of the other Julio designs has had in the past. The English teacher's mad again. Gray Kydex, really nice loop here at the back, or a plate on the back with a belt loop, and you can move this around. You've got a snap here and dual screws, so you can move it around a bit. Might even be able to carry this horizontally if you want. It'd be quite a big knife to do so, but I've seen crazier things done in some of the camping trips I hang out at. It has to be said. Really cool. This next knife, I think, would make a good companion to this blade, actually, and that is the Condor Beetle, which is listed on our site as a Julio Diaz knife, even though it doesn't have the black micarta or the Kydex sheath, which we'll get to in a minute. There you go. That is the Beetle. Price on this, $66 and change, 1075, 2.67-inch blade, rustic finish, and we're not going to call that a Scandi grind because it's pretty high for that. And there's not even that much secondary bevel going on. This might be a tall Scandi grind. So those things are actually kind of hard to tell. It'd be real easy to Scandi that out though if that was your thing. Now I'm intrigued. Sorry while I look at this, folks. Yeah, it's pretty flat, and I think it's going right down to 0. It might have been buffed to kind of roll that edge, make it a little bit fatter right at the edge. But that's gonna be a great little wood carver, a little whittler around the campfire, smaller detail cuts where you might not need to bring out your big Condor Balam. That's what I mean by this would be a pretty good camp pairing right there. Those two guys and a saw, and you're gonna be pretty much set for a lot of things. Very nice. Hardwood handles, about a 3-finger grip for me. Almost even a 3.5, because my third finger does hit right on this peak right here, so your mileage may vary there. And yet it's still pretty comfortable. It's gonna work well choked up. Chest lever grip's gonna work nice. Pinch grips on the blade. You're gonna be able to use that tip really effectively. And the sheath here, it's actually pretty cool. It's leather, has a retention strap. Stick that in there. There we go. And you can carry it around the neck. In fact, it's set up for neck carry. Actually, we can demonstrate that for sure this time. But I don't want to hit the microphone. Sorry, Thomas.
You already did.
You can also carry it on the belt horizontally or vertically. If you are going to carry it horizontally, you might have to just be wearing like a belt or a rope as a belt, because you can see the pathway out the other side is very narrow. Definitely more set up for standard vertical carry. But the versatility there is a nice thing to see. It matches the versatility of that small blade. And last from Condor, we have the Sport Zero Stinger. Zero spelled X.E.R.O. Stinger spelled like normal. And this is a cool series. 105, 4.2-inch blade, Sandvik's 14C28N steel. Micarta for the handles, bolted on. It's not contoured from the side, as you can see, but the edges have all been rounded over quite nicely. has a pretty decent feel in the hand, I'd say. And this one right here is pure hunter all the way. That trailing point blade or upswept blade, actually technically we can't call that a trailing point, can we? Because if we draw that line forward, it's a bit of an upswept elliptical shape. In a way, actually as I see that, in a way this kind of reminds me of a Canadian belt knife. It's a bit more abstract, but look at these angles. Look at that elliptical shape to that spine. That's very Canadian belt knife-esque, I would say. Very cool. As such, you're going to be able to pull off long, sweeping slices very nicely with this. Even be a good camp kitchen cutter as well, because you're going to have the clearance you're going to need to pull slices off on a cutting board with. If you're hanging off the edge of the board or table, you can even do some rocking stuff with it. Heck, let's make it a 3-knife combo right here. You got your Beetle and your Balam for camp stuff, and you got this for your hunting side of things and your food prep side of things. Pretty neat. Kydex sheath is on board here as well. Just standard black this time, no fancy grays, and a simpler kind of nylon belt strap affair. But it looks like we even have some MOLLE compatibility with this strip right here, and an extra snap for handle retention. Even though it doesn't need it, I'd say the Kydex is doing a great job. But cool to see Condor kind of branching out a little bit, doing things beyond just the hardwood handles, which they've been doing for a number of years now, but they're leaning into it a little bit more, I think. New steel options with the Sandvik right here. Newer, cooler Kydex sheath options as well. Very nicely done. And last but not least, in the least of which, we have a bunch of new MetonBoss scales. The one I'm going to talk about right here is a set of shaman scales made of zirconium with a dragon scale pattern going on. Very nice. Made in the USA. $250 for these, I will say. You got to really know you want this sort of thing to really pimp out your shaman. But they're super well made. The fit on these is excellent. Even the machining on the inside of them. I know I keep turning it around and looking on the inside, even though the showy bits on the outside, even the inside has a cool look to it. I don't know. What do you folks think? There are several shaman scale sets we have available right now. Not all of them are zirconium if you can't stomach that kind of price. There are brass and copper and titanium, much more affordable compared to these, but a lot of really cool options from them right now. We'll just leave a link, I think, to the whole MetonBoss page, because we've got a bunch. I don't even remember exactly which knife models we have new scales for. I think there's some new smock scales that we just got in, but there's a lot of stuff that just came in from them. So we'll send you over that way to check it out. That's all I have for you this episode, but there will be more new knives later this week on our regularly scheduled day for these videos. Make sure to stick around for more stuff there. Make sure to let me know what you thought of these knives in the comments, and if you want to get your hands on them, links in the description will take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, because if you're buying one of these knives today, you might as well be earning some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off. See you next time.